Alrighty, guys, welcome to the 100% podcast where we break the shame, stop playing the I'm not worthy game, and let's actually elevate our life to make a ton of money and love and emotional fame like I know who I am and all of me knows who I am. All right, let's go. So basically the point of the podcast is to break the limiting beliefs that we have to not allow abuse anymore. Because essentially the only thing and reason that we allow abuse or mediocrity is because we don't even know our own greatness. So let's talk a little bit about the weekly portion of this week called Noah. All right, are y'all ready for this? Oh, y'all ready for this? Okay, so I'm going to slightly read off Chabad.org as well as give you just some cool takeaways about the energy of this week so you can actually elevate your life in perfect order. Because the truth is everything is happening in perfect order, but if you don't really know what's going on, you can't tap into it. So let's dive right in. The Parsha of this week is Parshas Noach, okay? And I'm going to pull up the Chabad.org article that I thought I had up, which I don't see right now. So really the main significance that we have this week is something about a pre-flood era and a post-flood era. So essentially, there was a really powerful era that existed before the flood that is totally and absolutely different than what we have right now. And I'm trying to find the text-based learning, and let's see if I can bring it up. Maybe we'll just edit this out, but let's see if we could find this. Here you go. I found it, guys. All right, let's go. Work with me. Stay with me. Don't get off the mat, yo. Stay with it. All right. So here we are talking about Parshas Noach. And like I said, there was a pre-flood era, a whole different state of energy and existence, and then a post-flood era, which is the era we are currently in, the energetic shifts that we're currently in, and it's called the post-flood era. So it's basically like this time of your life where you have an awareness that something might have been different than your current state. Have you ever had that where you're just like, oh, I always thought about it one way and now I think about it the other way? So here's an example for me. I was always like pro-choice. I was like, man, choice is powerful. Choice is really important. And like, how could you take away choice from a woman? Like that makes no sense, right? Her body, her choice, her life. That is like the most basic, normal sounding statement that I think most everyone would agree on. But then I realized what it actually meant. And I was like, I got pregnant. So for my whole adult life, I was like, well, that clearly makes sense. But then I got pregnant and I was like, now I'm a mom. And now I have a lot of friends who are moms. And I've seen a lot of friends who deliver babies like way earlier than birthing. And then I felt my own baby come into my body. And I was like, oh, it's not pro-choice, pro-life. It's pro-life, pro-death. Because there actually is a living, feeling, spiritual being inside of you that you need to kill for it to not be there anymore. It's not like you just remove it, you kill it. You stop its growth, right? The opposite of growth is death. The opposite of life and growing is death. So for you to stop growing this baby that's inside of you that will continue to grow and flourish and come out into a human in a short period of time, in a very short period of time, the only way to stop that is actually death. It's actually killing. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Like for me, that was like a big eye opener because for so long I was like, choice makes sense. And it's not like, you know, you can never fight that. But then I was like, no, I understand now. Like I've seen the babies that were born early. Like they have fingerprints at I think 9 weeks. You see the heartbeat like way early. You get to check the gender like super fast, like when they're tiny little things. So only because I had my own pregnancy did I have a shift of understanding my reality, how I perceived the world, what I believed, what was like a different form of functioning. And this is not a political podcast. These are just experiences that you have in your own life where you say to yourself, like, before I went through this, I didn't really like see very clearly, or I had a totally different perspective or totally different understanding. Like for me, when my best friend passed away, it was like before Kazi passed and after Kazi passed. Like before Kazi passed, life was life, and I had my own beliefs and my own understandings. And then after Kazi passed away, I was like, oh my gosh, life is so different. Death is so different. Addiction is so different. And I had a whole new awareness of an energetic shift in reality in the realm that I was currently living in based on like an experience. So the flood, and I just want to like add one more thing, like when my brother died, like there's like when Yassel was alive and my whole life and understanding of a family unit and completion and mental health. And then Yassel was murdered. And then after that, my whole life without my brother, without them, and my awareness of a world of, you know, different forms of police brutality or lack of understanding or mental health crises that are totally misunderstood, right? And how guns are destroying so many people struggling because they don't have other tools to manage the discomfort or the fear that comes with people who are really not in control of their mind and body. So again, there are like these big moments, like what's your trauma? What's your like before and after moment? You're like, fuck, like I thought life was like this, and then now it's like that. And then you like develop this awareness of like, oh, everything that I thought before actually wasn't fully true. And there's a whole new reality that now I can tap into that I couldn't before because I didn't have this like contrast. So Noach, Parshas Noach, is the period of history where historically there was a really big flood. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So we are now speaking on colors, on the mystical significance of the rainbow that was written by Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who was also known as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who basically changed the world as we know it. Many presidents of all different countries would come and fly to see him for confidence and advice on how to run their own countries. Jewish, not Jewish, Christian, Muslim, people valued his intellect, his vision, and his love. So he is writing and talking about this, and we're going to go into it right now. So it literally says in Genesis 9:8-15 that God spoke to Noah and his sons who were with him, and God said, this shall be the sign, the rainbow shall be the sign of the covenant which I am making between me, God, and you, and then every living creature that's with you for all the generations to come. Okay, so like I have designed something pretty super cool and pretty obvious. I love when God is clear and obvious. Narcissists, unhealthy people like to confuse you and make you feel stuck in situations of mediocrity by making you feel confused what the right move to do is. Should you leave your job? Should you not? Should you leave the relationship? Should you not? Right? And then confusion causes inaction. Only action breeds clarity. But if you have too much confusion, you take inaction, which means you never take the action you need to get the clarity, right? So that is a huge part of unhealthy relationships, is that subtle sense of confusion that makes us not act. But God is saying, dude, I love you so much. I am a healthy source of energetic love and flow in the world, and I am your creator and everything's creator, and I want to show you how much I love you. So I'm going to make you a sign that is very clear. All right, so he created the rainbow. The rainbow, God said in Genesis, my rainbow I have set in the cloud. When the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, I shall remember my covenant. Never again shall the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. So essentially God's saying, like, I made this really cool sign. It's really obvious. And I set it up in the sky near the clouds. And I just want you to know, like, this is my promise. This is my, like, energetic creator, godly love that I have shifted the world now into a different state that I won't destroy. I won't cause forms of destruction of people through a flood, which actually, if you think about it, he said to destroy all flesh. So basically, before and after the flood, God destroyed the whole world, essentially. Like, the entire living world that existed was destroyed minus Noah and some creatures and his family, right? So the majority of the world was destroyed. But if we think about it, tsunamis, which are extraordinarily godly and supernatural, still destroy tons of people, and hurricanes still destroy, and they're also a very godly force, but it's like, it's sections, it's categories, it's logistically based, and it is not all flesh. So it's just important to think that he's not like, I'm not going to destroy through water. Also people drown, also lots of crazy stuff happen, but he says, I'm not going to do it like in mass. Okay, so like when you see the rainbow, just remember There might be destruction in the world, but it won't be like a full, complete renewal and rebuilding of the whole world in generations. It's like, maybe in smaller sections. So the rainbow is, of course, a natural phenomenon. Rays of sunlight pass through water droplets that are suspended in the atmosphere, and the clear crystal-like droplets refract the light, unleashing the spectrum of colors that it contains, and then displays them in an arc across the sky. That is literally what a rainbow is. So you want to take this and be like, what? All these colors essentially come through two ingredients, two physical ingredients. So as we know, the physical world and the spiritual world are paralleled. There is a huge connection and mirror-like functioning imaging creation between the spiritual world and the physical world. And we can go into that at a different time. But for this sake, let's just go with what is. So the two ingredients that you need for a rainbow are light and water. Okay? So light, as we know, is connected to God. And it's like the energetic source that comes from the sun that consistently, allows things to grow, allows us to see where we're going, allows us to stay warm. And also light is like spirituality. It's a very spiritual state when people die and they go to another realm of spirituality. They say it's like filled with light. When we feel at peace, we feel light around us. When people are in a really positive state, there's an aura around us, a light. And light essentially is like a state of spirituality, of like heightened spirituality and spiritual connection to God. So that's one. And then water is a flow. It's literally like a spring. It's completely divine. And they say that the Torah, the Old Testament, is connected to water. They say Mayim is Chaim, and Chaim and Torah. Torah is like water. So we have the Torah, we have water, and then we have spirituality and enlightenment and love, and which is the light. So light plus, you following me here? Light plus water in its own beautiful way creates this gorgeous, spectacular gift from God and the rainbow. So how do we apply this to our own life? There are so many ways that we can have laws, right? There's a lot of people who practice their religion in a set of laws. And the laws are beautiful, freeing, and wonderful to understand because they're truly ways to connect to God in a contained space where you're not like constantly living in chaos and confusion, not knowing what to do to how to elevate your life, and therefore taking too much inaction, or living in too much inaction where you don't fulfill your purpose and take enough powerful, goal-oriented, clear action, joyful action, right? You have to act, you have to serve God, but you got to do it in joy. And you won't know how to facilitate that joy if you don't know your goals. So the laws are there as a very powerful source, but you need the spirituality to have the simcha, to have the joy, to have the goal, to have that light. And so if you're serving God without the joy, then you don't have the light. So you might have the water, the flow of the Torah, of God, of the laws, but if you don't have the light and the love and the joy, then you don't have the mind. You don't have the light. You don't have that effervescent like gratitude to be alive while you're trying to live your best life within the laws. So you need these two massive ingredients that create the rainbow. Okay, then it goes. Yet before the flood, this natural occurrence didn't occur. So before the flood, there was never even such a rainbow. There was something about the interaction between the moisture, the water, the mayim in the Earth's atmosphere, and the light emanating from the sun that failed to produce a rainbow. So before the flood, it was actually slightly different physics, slightly different energies in the world, and the light, even when it came mixed with the water, did not produce a rainbow. It was only after the flood that the dynamics of the world that shifted created a rainbow, and that energy that Hashem, that God put into the world after the flood, that was when this newly formed covenant with his creation shifted the way the world worked, that produced a rainbow from the moisture and the light. The spiritual and the physical are two faces of the same reality. This change in the physical nature of the interaction between water and light reflects a deeper spiritual difference between the pre and post-flood worlds. And the result is that There was a difference in God's manner of dealing with a corrupted world. So let's just talk about that. We spoke about how the physical and the spiritual are basically two faces of the same reality. They're paralleled. But there was a physical energetic shift in the world after the flood. And so if there was a physical shift in the world, what is the spiritual mirror to that physical shift? And here it goes. An examination of the Torah's account of the first 20 generations of history reveals two primary differences between the world before the flood and the world after the flood, the pre and the post-flood era. The pre-flood generations enjoy long lives. So before the flood, that was sweet. Before the flood, generations enjoyed long lives. People would live into their 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries. Like Noah's grandfather, Methuselah, lived till 969 years old. His father, Lamech, lived till 777 years old. And Noah himself lived till 950 years, almost 1,000 years. And the Zohar explains that this was an era of divine benevolence. Like God was just like loving and giving, and there was so much goodness and flow in which life, health, and prosperity flowed freely and indiscriminately from above. There was no like, well, you're great, you're bad, you're stressed, you're not stressed. So like, you're going to live really long and you're not going to live really long. And there's going to be this disease. It was just like, God was so loving and glowing. And he just gave so freely of his divine energy, his divine flow before the flood, which caused people to live till almost 1,000 years. And now it's just a totally different space. And we want to go into that because divine benevolence is a really powerful existence where we can tap into at all stages of life right now. God is still divine and he is still benevolent. But sometimes we miss how to tap into that energy, which leads us into not taking enough action, not taking enough moments of gratitude, and feeling like we're not enough, that we remove our greatness in the world, kind of being upset and therefore acting out to ourselves and others. So following the flood, we see a steady decline in the human lifespan. And just so you guys know, this is on Chabad.org. It's an article that was compiled and written based on the Rebbe studies, and the title is Colors, okay? So following the flood, we see a steady decline in the human lifespan. Within 10 generations, Avram is old. He's so old at only 100, which is kind of like where we're at now. If you live till 100, you're like old. But back in the day, you lived till 1,000 and you were old. So literally, physically, people lived a 10th of their time. And I was talking to my friend Mayan, and she was basically saying, like, even 200 years ago, our lifespan was vastly different and so much less. Okay. So besides for the fact that people just did not even live as long after the flood, a second difference is that it seems that the second difference is one that seems at odds with and even contradictory to the first. See, after the flood, the world gained a stability and a permanence it didn't enjoy in the pre-flood era. So two things that we have now in some weird way is stability and permanence. Let's talk about that a little bit more and what that even looks like. Because before the flood, the world's very existence was contingent upon its moral state. When humanity disintegrated into corruption and violence, Hashem said to Noah, "The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I shall destroy them and the earth." And then following the flood, Hashem vowed, "I will not again curse the earth because of man, neither will I again smite everything living as I have done. For all the days of the earth, the seasons for seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." Okay? So what we're really understanding here is that there was some form of benevolent divine flow that existed before the flood that was basically people lived on their morality, how moral they were. And now, even if people are crazy immoral, God's still saying, I'm not going to destroy people based on where they're at. And no longer would the cycles of life and nature totter on the verge of extinction whenever man strays from his God. Before, when people are so away from the flow, the way of divinity, the way of morality and godliness, there was actually like an energetic, holy crap, this is not cool. I didn't create the earth for so much violence and insanity and immorality. Let me clear that air. Let me clear the air literally through a big flood and rebirth. And so that was the flood. It was like too much insanity is happening, too much immorality, too much lack of awareness and tapping into the flow consistently. Let me just rebirth it all. Let me just destroy and rebuild. But God says, I've now created a world where I'm no longer functioning on that level, on that idea. So I'm going to repeat that. No longer with the cycles of life and nature totter on the verge of extinction whenever man strays from his God. The post-flood world is a world whose existence is assured. Like, y'all, you're more in a state of teva now. Like, before the flood, you were in a state of divinity and divine benevolence and godliness. And if you strayed from that, it was based on your morality. But now it's like there's a permanence. I promise that there's more like nature in the fact that what you do will cause a consequence in your life that is separate from me just taking my energetic divine flow in and out of your life. I hope that made sense. The post world, okay, so it's assured, a world that is desired by his creator regardless of its present state of conformity to his will. So right now, Hashem's like, dude, I love you no matter what. And whether you screw up or not, or connect to me or not, I promise I'm going to just stay here with you as is. And the guarantor of this assurance, God saying like, yo, I'm with you no matter how and what you do. There's a symbol of this new stability. And that stability, that God giving more flexibility to your lack of morality or morality, that's the assurance that he gives with the rainbow. Like, I love you so much that I'm going to allow you to falter and fail, but my love for you, how lovable you are, is constant. The rainbow is something that was created in the world as God's promise to say, look, I get it, you're human, and you're gonna F up, and you're gonna do things that are immoral, and you're gonna screw up, and crazy stuff's gonna happen to you, and you're gonna do crazy stuff, but I promise you, the love that I have for you is permanent. The love that I'm going to give to you, no matter what you do, no longer is it based on your morality to destroy and rebirth, but I'm just never going to remove it from you. I'm always here to love you completely as is, and you are fully, fully lovable. So that is the stability of the rainbow. And before the flood, guys, I want you to get that, because this is a really powerful sicha. It's a really powerful divine Kabbalistic wisdom that comes down through Chassidut from the Rebbe. And it's an powerful understanding that there's an era of transformation and empowerment. Because before the flood, we basically were like stuck in our own ways. It's like we can have divine flow and like be creative and get into that like glory of God that he was just like giving us abundantly in benevolence. But if for some reason we tapped out of it, then we lost it and we just went to immorality and we couldn't really reconnect. We couldn't really have this state of like low to high. And then if we overcome our lows, have transformation, resilience, and empowerment. Because if you truly take your traumas and you use them as your like, I am so strong and resilient and God is so good, no matter what happens that is bad seemingly, there's an empowerment and a strength and a vitality to life that did not exist before the flood. So the stability of God's reassurance of his love, regardless of where you go in your life, is actually the symbol of the rainbow. It's not like y'all screwed up. Remember how bad you effed up and I was going to destroy the world and check it out. The rainbow is actually God's divine and gorgeous sign that I've created stability in a world that is separate from your morality, unlike before the flood, where a rainbow did not even exist, based on the light and the water and the moisture and the perfect combination. That same combination that happened pre-flood created nothing. That combination now after the flood, literally physics changed. The world physically and spiritually changed, and now we developed a rainbow. Before the flood, a man's role in creation lay primarily in reacting to God's involvement in the world. So before the flood, our ability to create and what we did in the world was literally in reacting to Hashem's involvement in the world. We were just like, yo, God, what's up? And we were just like connecting to God. He was in his divine flow, so much benevolence of godly energy, or we disconnected from it. The flow of divine vitality into the world was plentiful and uninhibited, which enabled man to attain great material and spiritual heights. This is before the flood. Before the flood, we were like, yo, in God's flow whenever we were there. And literally it was plentiful, uninhibited. And therefore we were able to have super high material and spiritual heights and wealth. But these achievements were merely man's acceptance of what was being bestowed upon him from above, rather than the fruits of his own initiative. So guys, now the whole world is shifted. Now, if we want to really get back into that like plentiful godly benevolence, we don't need to just be like, our fruits of our own initiative is what's going to create my life, right? This whole concept of control and surrender, that's literally the energy we're in now. Now, we need to accept, we need to go back and work a lot harder to accept what the reality is in our lives. So what allows people, men and women, to allow mediocrity or abuse or attract unhealthy relationship, jobs, people, places, or things in their life is because they don't accept reality. They're just like, why did my dad beat me? Why was my mom an alcoholic? Why did she get raped? Why is there murder? Like, they don't accept reality. And so the lack of acceptance of reality actually causes some disconnection to God and disconnection to themselves because they're not accepting who they are. It's like when you want to lose weight and you're just like visualizing your hot body in your mind, right? But if you don't accept your current weight right now by looking at the scale and writing I weigh, then you're never actually going to get to the place that you need to get to go because you haven't come to a state of full acceptance. You have to look at the numbers. You have to ask the hard questions. Otherwise, you can't genuinely accept where you truly are at right now to take the next best step. The same thing if you want to grow in your money or in your business. If you're not looking at your bank account every day and saying, I made money from this, I lost money from that, I'm spending money on this, how do you expect to grow if you first don't genuinely accept where you're at financially? So what we're doing now in this new state after the flood is thinking, this flood, this new state that God created in the world is basically a distortion. I have to think not about what fruits come from my own initiative, but how do I first accept what was being bestowed upon me from above? And literally I'm quoting as I'm reading this powerful sikha, okay? So we have to shift away from fighting what is and who people are, y'all, for real. You want your relationships to get better, the past doesn't exist, and start accepting people for who they are and for who they're not. Yo, my mom is XY amazing at this, and she is not XY amazing at that. Yo, my husband, he is so good at so many things, honestly, because I happen to have an epic husband, but he's so good at X, Y, and Z, but he's not good at X, Y, and that. Meaning, I got to accept, if you want to live in a happy state, who I am and who I'm not, right? So I'm so good, what I think, at other things, writing, reading, communicating, like my right? My business, my clients. I suck at math and concepts, and cleaning is not my strong suit, and certain things, right? So I am very good at some things and I'm not very good at other things. And that's the reality of everyone. My husband's great, and he's not great at that. And my mom and my dad, they're so good at like doing certain things, and then they freaking suck at doing other things, right? All of us got there. So if you really want to have this state of divinity, divine benevolence, and really bring down God into your life to create spiritual heights that we were able to achieve before the flood, we have to remember what that divine benevolence, how we tapped into it, which was literally through man's acceptance of what was being bestowed upon him from above. We have to learn how to accept reality as is. I was literally speaking to a couple the other day, like yesterday. She's like, I wish I could go back in the past and just change that mistake that I did so that I'm not in this horrible situation that I am in right now. That's not accepting reality. Wishing you can go back in the past and date that guy again, or not do that stupid financial mistake again, or wish you didn't use that doctor or that dentist. If you go back into the past and you keep wishing you can change something, that's not accepting reality right now as is, and you're literally distorting your power, your perception of the acceptance of the now of God, and therefore you don't really know how to create the next best step because you're not in the state of flow of divine benevolence, which is God is only good, and if you accept reality as is and what it is not also, that is how you can manifest these spiritual and physical heights, okay? The pre-flood world was like a brilliant pupil who grasps the most profound teachings of his master, but who lacks the ability to conceive of a single original thought of his own. So once corrupted, once it had distanced itself from its master and disavowed its relationship with him, it lost the basis for its existence. When man ceased to respond, the world held no further use for the creator. So this is a really powerful thing that we need to understand. We have to ask the hard questions first. I was talking to my husband about this on Simchat Torah, on a holiday that recently happened. I was in temple, I was in shul, and I was like, so many people! Just listen to other people who have authority. And that's it. They're just like, oh, my rabbi said, my preacher said, my therapist said, my psychologist said, my psychiatrist said, the CDC said, right? And it's like, well, did you ask who created the CDC? Because I'm pretty sure he was a sick psychopath who actually only developed this entire CDC to consistently allow things that he was doing that was very unhealthy, right? No one asked who created the CDC. Because it didn't exist all the time. It was literally here and then not here. Someone had to create. Someone had to create it. Who created it? Was he healthy? Was he moral? What was his intentions? Why did he create it if it didn't exist before? What purpose and function does it really have? Who's funding it all? Which means they answer to the funds, right? No one asked the question. There's like, well, the CDC says. My doctor, who is paid by the CDC and will lose his license if he doesn't, says. I'm like, okay, that's it. But like, how many times has your doctor been sued for malpractice in the past 10 years? I don't know. Ask him, right? I was about to have a surgery and I asked, how many times have you done this surgery? Super awkward question. When you meet a hot girl and a hot guy, or you're single and you want to marry them and they're like everything that you thought they would be for your spouse. And you're like, if we stay together long enough and we hang out long enough and we like each other long enough, you'll marry me? Without asking the hard question first of like, hey, I really like you. I think you're great. Are you ready right now in a state of your life to get married? Because I don't want to waste 3 years with somebody who doesn't actually want to get married because they never came to that on their own. I don't want to force you. I don't want to manipulate you. I don't want to have hard conversations a million times trying to convince you to choose me and want me and marry me. Like, no. Like, are you as a grown adult with your own autonomy, decision, and development in life ready to be in a committed relationship and actually have true and lasting commitment? Oh, you're not? Great. I love you. I think you're pretty hot, or whatever you say to them or say to yourself. But I'm not going to continue this relationship. But if you don't ask that hard question first, it's date number 1, yo, that's what's up, then essentially you are living in fantasy land and not taking the initiative to create what you want in your life. So what we're talking about now is the pre-flood world before the flood. The people were able to grasp like really powerful concepts from masters, but they lacked the ability to conceive of a single original thought of their own. They didn't question. They didn't ask. They didn't ask. And so much of the world is taught through the educational system, through certain churches, through different teachings, through different practices, through different schools, even in unhealthy schools. Sit down, shut up, and listen to what I am telling you so that you can learn, right? A lot of people know this. Most school systems and educational systems and certain places of worship will tell you, don't stop asking so many questions. Just listen. Sit down and shut up and listen to what I'm trying to tell you. And then you can ask me your questions. And that is actually the most unhealthy thing we can do with our children or our students. It's like, no, ask as many questions as you want, because if you have an original thought and you grasp it in your own way, even if we go off topic, that's how we're going to be in this post-flood era that is truly able to tap into the divine benevolence that we had before the flood. Originally, how God wanted the world. He didn't want to stop divine benevolence, and he still has it, but now it's more concealed. It's like now we have to be in a state of acceptance plus original thought, or light plus water, spirituality plus laws. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. We can't just ivdu. We can't just serve. We got to be in the joy. We have to be in the gratitude, because if you're doing all the laws, but you're an unhappy, unhealthy mess, and you're keeping full nida, but your husband hates you, you missed the point. And I'm not telling anyone to break halacha. I'm saying you need both. And this Parsha talks about how we have and need to have our own original thoughts to tap into a state of true acceptance and gratitude. to connect to divine benevolence, which means we have to grapple in a way that is true and healthy. God says, no longer if you go away with your morality will I destroy. I've given you now a different physics, a different energy, a different stability that now you can totally F up and I will still love up on you. Now, if you mess up, I will still forgive you. Now, if you mess up, you actually have a power of transformation, resilience, and empowerment that you did not have before. And what I want to say about that is halacha was created, the law of the Old Testament was created for the general public, which is why there is a sect that we have a Rav. We have like a higher, not a rabbi, just so you guys know, a Rav and a rabbi are vastly different in their ability to paskin, in their ability to make judgments for you and your life above the law. So if you ask a rabbi who is not a Rav, they might tell you what you can or should do, but they are in a very different spiritual and knowledgeable state most of the time, and only a Rav can paskin. Only a Rav can tell you to totally break halacha for the betterment of your life because it was made for the general public, and you might not be in that flow or vibe or necessity that other people need, right? We're no longer homogenous, especially now. We all have individual needs to better our marriage, our life, our sanity. And that's why there's Ravs and people who tell us, you know what, 100%, like you're not supposed to do X, Y, and Z in general, but for you, you totally can. All right. So let's keep going. It says, once the world was corrupted, once it had distanced itself from God and disavowed his relationship with him, it lost the basis for existence. That's how God first stopped existence and removed himself because they became so immoral, right? So now when we stopped responding, when we just, before the flood, when we became so despondent and disconnected to God, God was like, yo, well, if you're so disconnected and you stop getting into divine flow and you're so in the immorality and you're just listening to everyone else instead of your own thoughts, there is no further use for the creator. And I quote. So God was like, screw that. If you're not able to like function in the way of individual production, surrender, gratitude, then let me just like clear the air. Literally, let's destroy and rebirth. But again, after the flood, and now I'm reading again, God imbued the world with a new potential. The potential to create, Machshava, Dibur, Maisar, our thought, speech, and action undoubtedly permeate the energies of the world, formulating life from hopefully your thoughts of happiness and not strife. See, right now, the era that we're in, the post-flood era, God was like, new potential. The potential you have right now in this phase of your life, in this post-era, I really think there's like three eras, right? There was the post-flood, there was a pre-flood, where God was like all there, but if you were immoral, you tapped out of the flow and you couldn't think on your own and you couldn't know how to swim, right? And then there's the now, which I'm going to read about, the potential to create and think on your own and question and actually empower and become resilient through your screw-ups. And then and then the third one, which is going to be Mashiach. Like that divine benevolence through your own resilience and empowerment is going to continue forever, okay? But we're not in the Mashiach phase. Let's just come to the phase we're at right now, which is after the flood. Okay, so after the flood, God imbued the world with new potential, the potential to create. We now actually can create in our life. Before it was God creating and we were in and out of the flow. Now we create with God, but we have a lot more power. He gave us that stability and promise through the rainbow. He's never going to destroy us. So now we actually have an opportunity to create, and now we're destined to create. Now we're meant to create. Now we need to be empowered to not be too in a state of a Amalek and doubt not to create and dream of, which is why truth is right before Mashiach, how many entrepreneurs are there? How many of them are like, screw school, let me learn how to create what I was born and facilitate my purpose, right? So you see it now coming in the world. Hashem granted the world an ability to take what it receives from above and develop it, extend it, and expand upon it. The world was now like a disciple who had been trained by his master to think on his own, which is like what the Rebbe's talking about right now. It's not like, listen to me, I'm the leader, I'm your cult leader. It's like, no, not the cult. The leader says, don't just think about what I tell you. Think on your own as well. And literally people are being trained now by the master to think on their own, right? So with my clients, I'm not like, I want you to hear my voice. I want you to hear your own voice. I train my clients in my therapy sessions and on my stages around the world. Don't just listen to my voice, get to know your own voice, get to know God's voice, get to know your intuition. Stop listening to your mother, your father, your preacher, your pastor, your therapist, your rabbi. Like, what do you say? What do you want? What do you feel with connection to God? Where's your voice? And that is a true leader. A leader doesn't create sheep and followers who are blind. They create more leaders to add so much more light to the world because they're imbuing people with their own empowerment and autonomy to create positive good. The world was now, like, I'm just going to repeat that. Okay. So we just said that, to take ideas which he learned and apply them to new areas. Man was now not only able to absorb the divine input into his life, but also to unleash its potential in the new and unprecedented ways. Now we're not supposed to just live like we've always lived. Now we're not just supposed to follow one leader. We're literally supposed to unleash our own potential in this world in new and unprecedented ways. That is our current state post-flood, okay? Whew, I can go into that more, but unleash your potential. You have to first ask yourself, what's your potential? You have to ask yourself, what's leashing me? What's stopping me? What's blocking me from not going out in my life and my purpose, what I want to create? If you don't even ask yourself a question, then you're not having the power that God created the world as is right now to unleash, because you're still shackled to what other people said you should do. What should you do? Ask yourself and unleash your potential with creation to God. That is the potential that we have right now. Such a world is in so many ways a weaker world than one that is wholly sustained by divine grace. So in some ways, we're in a weaker world now, because before it was just like sustained by divinity and God's benevolence and God's like incessant energetic flow. And now it is more independent, and we live in a place that's not 100% revealed good all the time flowing. It exists flowing silently, like Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing but God. But there's some sense of independence, okay? And thus, this world and we are more subject to the limitations and the morality of the human state. Hence the shorter lifespans of the post-flood generations. Because if we don't like ourselves, if we don't unleash our potential, if we don't tap into the unprecedented potential that God created us now to create through our thoughts, through our machshava, dibur, and maisa, then essentially what we're doing is we're being hard on ourselves. We're feeling angry with ourselves. We're saying we're not enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not a good enough mom. I'm not a good enough dad. Oh my God, I'm not enough. And we literally have this limitation that we shackle ourselves to, completely disconnecting ourselves from God's divinity. And we remove the magic that exists to create right now, which is what God wants and how he designed this new post-flood world. So we're now limited, because before you lived to like 1,000. Now we're living till who knows what. And why people pass away now a lot of times is through dis-ease. And dis-ease is essentially tumors and unhealthy things that are created through stress, which is stress, if you break it down, are negative emotions stored in the body, which create tumors. Traumas that are unleashed and unhealed, which means acknowledged, forgave, and released, literally stay in our body and create and wreak havoc on our bodies. Because now, before, there was just immorality without shame and awareness. There was immorality without connection to God. There was like, there's God in immorality, but there was no shame and guilt. Now we have so much shame and so much guilt, feeling that we're less than and completely not fully lovable, that we allow mediocrity in our life. We allow the doubt to stop us from taking massive action to create and fulfill our potential. And so we genuinely have shorter lifespans, because our human state and our mortality is being completely destroyed by our lack of tapping into our creative flow, God's creative flow, and hurting ourselves through shame and guilt, which essentially is stress and negative emotions that causes all of these illnesses. And if you want to learn more about that, check out Louise Hay and Joe Dispenza. Thousands and thousands and millions of dollars proving how our physical body parallels our spiritual world, where shame and guilt inside our body actually destroys and causes death and disease. Okay. So, but in the final analysis, such a world is more enduring. Our world right now, even though there's shorter lifespans, and even though we're more independent, we have to think on our own now. In some ways, it's more enduring. Even when it loses sight of its origin and purpose, this world right now, this era, it retains the ability to rehabilitate itself and to restore its relationship with our creator. And that just gives me full body chills because it possesses an independent potential for self-renewal. It can always reawaken this potential, even after it's been suppressed and lain dormant for generations. So back in the day, it was like God's flow existed. There was immorality and crazy stuff that happened when you tapped into it, but there wasn't really like a self-check. There wasn't like a shame and a guilt check. So you were just like super immoral or super in the flow. And now when you're not in God's flow and you're immoral, there's shame and there's guilt and you're not able to have your potential and you hate yourself on it. But if you have those traumas that crazy people hurt you and you feel like less lovable, but if you learn what I'm trying to teach you, what the Torah is trying to teach you and God's trying to teach you is that you're 100% lovable no matter what happened to you and no matter what you've done, then actually you can change your whole life, unleash your potential, and live in the glory of divine benevolence as is. Now the world possesses the potential for self-renewal. And that is what God gave us the potential for. We can take our traumas and make it our treasures. Like for me, my trauma is that I've been through so much addiction, chaos, and insanity. I dated 1 million people and broke up with 1 million people and had so much death in my life, like literally people dying, like my brother and my best friend. And then also crazy addiction stories, but it's like, now that's my treasure. Now I'm like, I am so knowledgeable on that freaking era of death and now life and addiction and then health that I feel so empowered to make really good decisions and to be in a super epic marriage. Y'all should get there, God willing, please. And choose a lot better than I was able to choose before. So my trauma actually became my treasure. It became my skill sets, my armor, my ability to decipher the unhealthy from the healthy and choose good. So take your traumas and make them like your treasures. Make them like, what did I learn from this that I can never unlearn, that I want to live a really great, powerful, kind, and loving, healing life. And your pain can become your pleasure. Like the pain that I've went through, it didn't take me down. It only gave me an ability to grow. So therefore, pain doesn't have to frighten me anymore. If I fail, I've been through so much worse pain than just not having this work out. I can therefore create and complete my potential and unleash it because my fear of failure, not really as painful as the crazy stuff I've been through. So probably still going to get okay, be okay from it and get through it. This potential for self-renewal is the stage that we're in right now, to be resilient, to reawaken ourselves, to re-empower ourselves, to know that God has given us a promise of stability, that he's changed the physical realm and therefore the spiritual realm, which parallels that and says, you know what? People are not like always going to do good. Like they're just not. But now I promise not to remove myself from you ever, based on what you've done or what has happened to you. Like you are still worthy of lovability 100%. You are 100% divine. You are 100% worthy of being loved as is. Last closing thoughts on this beautiful article. The rising mist from Schneerson, from Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The rainbow is the natural event that exemplifies the new post-flood order. Okay, there is a new order, a new energy. The rainbow is just that natural thing that exemplifies it. That like is the purest example of we're in a new state. Moisture, the water, the mayim, the Torah, rises from the earth to form clouds and raindrops, which catch the light of the sun. There's so much chassidus on the sun and sun rays, y'all, but which catch the light of the sun, the spirituality, the glow, the warmth that comes. So the moisture from the earth catches the light of the sun. A less refined substance would merely absorb the light. But the purity, because we are so 100% lovable no matter what has happened to us, and no matter what we have done, we are worthy, and shame does not exist in our bodies and are not meant to exist in our life. But the purity and the translucency of these droplets allow the droplets to focus and channel the rays that capture in such a way that reveals the many colors implicit within each ray of sunlight. We have so much potential, and we are so many beautiful things and so many things we are and we're not. but implicit within us are rays of sunlight. Then when we connect, Ivdu et Hashem bisimcha, when we have all the laws, but we add the gratitude and the acceptance of what is, not trying to change people and not trying to change ourselves to be lovable. We can relax into life to truly get our numbers and our cheshbon nefesh straight, not to be hard on ourselves, but to be like, I accept what is because God's given me stability and unconditional love. So what is my next best step to unleash my potential? The pre-flood world lacked the rainbow. There was nothing in or about it that could rise from below to interact with and develop what it received from above. There was literally nothing there that took all of us and perfectly blended us with Hashem and created this magical, beautiful, like glorious thing in the sky. Such was its spiritual nature. That's just how God created the spiritual nature of the world before the flood. As a result, the conditions for a physical rainbow also failed to develop. Physical matches and parallels the spiritual. The mist it raised in the pre-flood could only absorb, not refract the light from the sun. Now we have an ability to take all of our hardships and transform them and empower ourselves. We didn't have that before. We didn't have God's promise of stability and continual, I will never destroy to rebuild. I'm only giving you an option to continuously build. Like you go down, you go right back up. Okay? Whew. Before they were only able to absorb. They were like, what did somebody else tell me to do? But they couldn't refract their own individual thought to take whatever their negative emotions and feelings and then transform it into the glory. Right now, we're in a state of like tikkun olam. We are the light. Never dim your light by asking somebody else what you should do without first asking yourself, what's my original thought? Huge. Sit with that for like 20 minutes. Whew. Because we're not supposed to be like, Rabbi, what should I do? Rav, what should I do? Rebbitzin, what should I do? Pastor, preacher, therapist, what should I do? Before you ask yourself, what's my original thought? What's my godly unleashing potential? What's my ability to create? What do I think about this? It is not that we should not have mentors. It also says in the Torah, like to Rav, like get yourself a teacher. And I love having my mentors. I've had the same 2 mentors for over 10 years of my life. Get a mentor. Get someone you value and trust, but only somebody who is exactly where you want to be in your life. If you are looking to become a millionaire, don't ask financial advice from someone who's never passed $100,000 per year. You want to ask someone who's made $1 million a year consistently. If you're going to become a millionaire, get advice from people who are already at where you want to be. If you want to have the best relationship in the world, don't go take relationship advice from someone who has a shitty ass marriage. Right? And if they are not telling you about their marriage, or you don't see both partners consistently, actively loving up on each other, or are vocal about their life, then probably not the best person to take relationship advice. A lot of people will tell you what to do without being the living example of what you want to become. So again, definitely get yourself a mentor. Definitely get someone to ask your hard questions to. I'm not saying not to have a Rav or preacher or rabbi or therapist. I'm saying do, but not without first, as we learn in this Parsha, have your original thoughts separate from your master to think, what do I think for myself? Between me and my Bina and my dot inside, in my dot, in my inner knowing and my inner light inside of me that God created, because whose image was I created of? In the image of? I was created in the image of God. I wasn't created in the image of my rabbi, my preacher, or my therapist. Whose image was I created in? I was created in the image of God, and therefore God is inside of me, and God is only me, and I should not first relinquish my original thought, my now ability to create and unleash my potential, to relinquish it first by asking someone else. I can and should ask my specific mentor who are where I want to be, who know more than me because they've lived and experienced more than me, but not without me. Not without me. First, and God first. We are not meant to disregard our own voice and knowing, and God's knowing and voice inside of us, to relinquish that, to have someone else tell us what to do. I hope that was very clear. Lacking a creative potential of its own, the pre-flood world was left without reason and right for existence when it ceased to receive the divine effluence from above. It couldn't have a creative potential before the flood. Like, you didn't have the ability to create on your own. You were just tapping in and out of God's flow with more like being immoral or tapping into God's benevolence, but you didn't have your own empowerment of resilience. So therefore there was like things that couldn't exist. But then came the flood, the rains that happened in the flood that is this week, the destruction, the trauma, the crazy stuff you've been through, the crazy things that have happened to you, the things you wish you didn't tell anybody, the shame, the pain, the scariest moments of your life when you wanted to kill yourself or kill someone else, the things you'd never tell anyone. God forbid they knew you thought that or did that or had someone do that to you and allowed it. They wouldn't love you. Those things, your flood, those rains destroyed a corrupted world, but yet also cleansed it and purified it, leaving in its wake a new world with a new nature. When we break our shame, when we learn we are 100% lovable and nothing about our love and our worth of a good, extraordinary, abundant life can ever be diminished, no matter what we've done or what has been done to us, we can rise and meet and transform what is bestowed upon us. A world with the translucency and refinement to develop the gifts it receives is what we're in right now, into a new, unprecedented vistas of color and light. When the world goes astray, God sees its rainbow. The sight causes God to desist from destroying it. For the rainbow attests to the world's new maturity and divine ability to be resilient, to re-empower ourselves, to go through our traumas and make them our treasures, to have our pain and make them our pleasures, to have that insane flood and purify ourselves still. We now have a world right now. We have an ability to ultimately rise above our present lapses and rebuild our relationship with our Creator. On that note, I am Chaya Garcia, relationship expert and motivational speaker. I love you. God loves you. Stop hating on yourself for the things you haven't done yet or could do more. That is not the unleashing of the potential that Hashem created in this world. It is literally to just lapse and rebuild, lapse and rebuild, lapse and rebuild until we remember that the rainbow that exists is actually not a bad sign. It's not. If you believe in the Rebbe and Chassidut in the Old Testament and all of the meaning and the life that's been created by great, powerful people before us that have studied this at length more than maybe most of us will ever get to our lifetime, had the vision to say, look, it is not a bad sign. It is a sign that you need to unleash your potential. Because before God wanted to destroy the world because you left and stopped tapping into his divinity and gratitude and flow through being immoral. But he's changed that. He no longer wants to destroy and rebirth. Now you get to just lapse and rebuild. Now it's on you. Now it's not just about the masters and the energy of God. Now God's made you independent and more enduring. And even though we have shorter lifespans, it's because we're not tapping into the potential of loving ourselves completely and therefore holding on to shame and an emotional disconnect of not feeling like we could do more. But if you can just accept, which is that power to tap into divine benevolence and God's flow and godly true energy, accept yourself truly as is and as not, what you are not. And that's beautiful too. Accept others as who they are and who they're not. And they're still lovable and you should still love them. That is the way we can change and cultivate this world and bring Mashiach. May he come, b'mehera b'yameinu amen, through our love and rebuilding of our own internal temple of light. May we always be containers of light and love as God created us for, so that we can love others genuinely, 100%, like we love ourselves. So I'm Chaya Garcia. This is the 100% podcast on Torah, Old Testament, new ideas originated from yourself and new feelings and lots of love. So let's go. Subscribe, like, share with your friends. Tell me what you loved, what you didn't love. How do you feel about unleashing your potential? What's the one thing you can do this year now that we're in new to unleash your potential? Let me hear it. Drop it in the comments below. I love you guys. Share, subscribe, and let's create good, more loving of 100%ness in the world. Peace.